Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to have a look at 2 key steps that I use before making that next big investment decision. This video is not going to be about cutting up your credit cards or budgeting, because I think there's actually a lot of YouTube tutorials on that already, and they're actually very good. So it's actually more strategic. It's going to have a look at stress testing your financials and whether or not you should make that investment decision or not. So basically there's 2 main steps. One is where you are. Are you going forward or backwards financially? And number 2, can you make or should you make that next big purchase? Let's find out. Okay, so step number 1 is having a look at where you are financially today. And we adopt the KISS principle, which is basically keeping it simple, stupid, in order to reduce the friction that is needed to compile this data, to put it into your financial statement, and then have very, very clear data to show if you should make that next purchase or how you want to stress test your financials later in this video. So in order to do that, we have a look at income, expenses, assets, liabilities, all elements of a financial statement. And that actually allows us to do 3 things. We have a look at what kind of growth projection we would like. Number 2 is which assets are working and which assets are not. And number 3 is what assets do I need to build or acquire in order to further increase that income and make that projection happen. But before we do that, we actually need data. And data comes in the form of expenses, mainly. So with expenses, I actually use an app called You Need a Budget, YNAB. And let's have a look at that now. All right, so the first step is having a look at your expenses and basically how to track them. Now, granted, there are many, many resources on the web, free, paid versions, from simple Excel to sophisticated apps that actually connect with your bank. I like to sort of keep it simple, and we basically just use, as a family, the expense tracking features of YNAB, which is You Need a Budget, who are not sponsoring this video. And the reason we use that, we've been using it for sort of 5-10 years, and we've been using the classic version, which is the free version, but now they have a subscription, an annual subscription, that I think is still worth it because I purely go for the reports. And if we have a look at their website, they have sort of a very nice UI website. They basically have a philosophy of giving every dollar its job. That's more for the budgeting part of it. For me, I don't do it that way. I use the financial statement. So if we have a look at some of the features, and we'll go directly to those features now. All right, so once again, this is mainly for the US, I think, so you can connect to your bank. We can't do that here in Hong Kong, so that's basically irrelevant. Real-time sync, that's okay. Yep, we have iPhones that we track all our expenses if we go out for meals and purchases, and then obviously you have the web version online as well as the iPad version, so that's great. Goal tracking, I don't really use that. Loan calculator, I definitely do not use that because although you can put it in, basically, because it doesn't sync with the bank, we just calculate our own separately on the financial statement, which makes actually more sense. But this I do use, the spending and the net worth reports. So I'll go through that in a minute. But basically, there's various features. I mainly just use the spending and net worth reports. And if we click on that, basically you'll see your trends here. It's quite detailed in terms of categorizing and having a look at each individual month or a few months in which category in terms of spending, net worth, and income versus expenses. And so basically it goes through here and it says, okay, how much have I spent on a few items, or just go by the general categories. And then it has all your accounts there as well. So you can actually make these spending reports, which is basically what I use, and I put this data into the financial statement. So here it sort of says, okay, basically between June and December, we spent, in this case, $2,800 on groceries. Down here, we have a look at it and it says, okay, what is the total spending? And then we can spend by category, by totals, loan payments, et cetera, et cetera. So it's actually quite good. And then you can click on those individual ones and see where the excursions happen or if you need to change your spending habits. Okay, so that's sort of the basic entry level for financial planning, personal finances, basically budgeting, right? So I'm not going to go through that, but you get the idea. So we go through and we have a look at the spending trends. That's great. And you start to get an idea of what you can afford and what you should afford in order to provide more income to pay for these expenses. And basically tracking your net worth, your assets, and your liabilities. So that's all great. This one is what I use, the income expenses. And I want to know if I'm moving forward in the month or in the year, or if I'm actually going back and why that happened. Okay? Right, so that's basically it for You Need a Budget. So actually, how does it look? So we'll have a look at that in a minute. All right, so now that you've basically had some data and tracked your expenses, each month I actually put these down into a financial statement. So with the financial statement, if we go back to that, we're actually having a look at writing all these down in the various categories, depending on the breakdown that you want, into the monthly expenses. Now, granted, usually there's many more entries in the monthly expenses. For monthly income, you might have one or two incomes, which you would simply place in that box. And so right away, you have your cash flow analysis. You have your income and you have your expenses. And then at the bottom, we have a look at the assets we have. So basically, having a look at investment properties, various businesses, various retirement funds, various stock accounts. And then we have a look at our liabilities, if we have any personal loans, outstanding mortgages, etc. So you have a very clear picture, and it only takes you sort of 10 minutes with the power of the reports from, let's say, You Need a Budget. And there's only a few entries with the monthly income. And so very quickly, you can have a look at sort of a snapshot of where you are financially. And that brings us actually to step 2, which is to have a look at analyzing that and if you can make that next purchase. So let's get into that. So step 2 is to analyze and modify your financial statement to see if you can make that next purchase and how it would look. So to do that, we adopt sort of Rich Dad, Poor Dad's principle from Robert Kiyosaki. Nothing new there. Obviously, it's well known that you have income, expenses, assets, and liabilities, and how the cash flow should flow is from assets which produce income to pay your expenses and basically to pay off your loans as well. So that's how you eventually build more and more assets and become financially free. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. Go over to Rich Dad, Poor Dad to check out their courses and their books, but basically everybody sort of knows about that now that's sort of touched this space. So if we have a look at the financial statement that we showed earlier, we can see this. And if I sort of have a look at one that's more filled out for you, we can have a look at income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. And let's just go over it as a case example. So, for example, if this person had 2 salaries in their income, both producing $5,000 US, he or she has portfolio income, which I call, from investment properties, $5,000 US, from businesses, $2,000 US. So his total income, his or her total income, is actually $17,000. And let's say for the expenses, there's loans, food, salary, education, insurance costs, personal care. You can have your own categories. I've sort of used these ones. These are sort of the ones that I use, the major ones. And let's say that is $14,500. You Need a Budget also has their default categories, but I actually don't use those. I just use my own. Just personalize it yourself. And so right away, you know that your cash flow statement, if this was your financial statement, you're cash flowing positive $2,500 a month, or sort of an income expense ratio of 1.17. All right. If this is negative, that means you're going backwards that month. And why? You might have to look at a 12-month sort of trend. Maybe there's taxes in 1 month that are large bills, obviously. So we need to consider that. But the key item that I actually want to get to is where the assets are. Now, every month I always focus on assets because that's really the point. If you're not building asset, you're not really going anywhere. Because if you don't have assets by the end, when you retire, you lose your income or you don't have an income anymore, but your expenses are, they can only go down by so much, I find. So with assets, we have a look at maybe have 1 or 2 investment properties. In this case, call them 300,000 each, so 600,000. You have, stuff in the bank, stock trading accounts. You might have some crypto, retirement funds. Call that 1.6 million. You might have a business that's worth 500,000. So roughly, your total assets are 2.7. And then if you have a look at, maybe your loans, personal 30,000, mortgage outstanding might be 500,000, something like that. So 530,000. So roughly your assets are more than your liabilities, and your net worth is about 2.1 at this stage. All right, so basically here we have to have a look at what else can we acquire. So let's say my income and expenses, the way I'm thinking is that, well, the income is actually not that solid every month, but my expenses are pretty consistent because I've been tracking them. So actually I want more income, and I have a little bit in terms of my bank account or my stock trading account to be able to spend on it. Or I have a loan that I can get in order to buy more asset that would cash flow. Okay, so here's the fun part, which is actually having a look at how do we stress test your financial statement to see if we can actually make that next purchase. All right, so I'm going to use an example. So let's say you want to buy a property, an investment property, and call that property $1 million. All right. Let's say a deposit, you need $200,000 and a loan of $800,000. So the question is, what does it look like in this space? So let's put that in. So we basically have a look at this financial statement, and we want to say, okay, investment property 3, right? And let's call that 1 million because we want to buy it at 1 million. Oops. Okay, and then we want another loan. And the loan will be 80%, which is 800,000. Okay, so we have obligations. The loan is going to be 800,000. So we have monthly expenses for that. And then the deposit, we are going to put down 200,000. So let's say we've taken that off of our, this was 200,000 before. So let's say we've just taken off that off our crypto account. Okay, so the loan amount for 800,000, let's call it a 30-year loan, and let's call lending at about 2%. Okay, so basically it doesn't matter if it's Hong Kong dollars or anything, but basically your monthly payment is going to be 2,956. Okay, various interest calculations, etc. So the total amount is 1 million over 30 years, that's fine. So let's just call it $3,000. Okay, so basically you input that into here, and you go, okay, the loan's payment is now going to go up by another $3,000. So the loans become $4,000. Okay, and obviously you're going to have to look at, say, okay, what kind of income am I going to get? So new rent, property number 3, call it. And let's call that 2,500 or maybe 3,500. All right. Okay. So if I get portfolio income of 3,500, my loans payment increases by 3,000. My net cash flow is sort of roughly the same. Okay, but obviously I've increased my exposure to liabilities. Now I have 800,000 in a new mortgage that's going to be paid off over 30 years. The tenant is paying it off, and I don't have any more crypto or whatever. So my net worth is roughly about the same, but I've increased my cash flow by sort of 500 US each month. All right, so what if, and you can stress test it, what if this property was actually not performing and I didn't get any rent that month? So you'd be, 0 here, but our mortgages remain the same. So actually my net cash flow is minus $500 a month. Now, obviously, you have to include sort of management fees and things like this as well. But I think it actually gives you a very, very easy way of having a look at it and going, okay, well, is this actually worth my while investing it this way, or do I want actually something else? Maybe a different setup, a different asset, something else that performs in this manner. So the net cash flow, it has to add to the bottom line. If it doesn't, don't buy it. You know, don't fall in love with property. It's just a tool to give you cash flow. Buy it if it adds to the bottom line. All right, so hopefully that's a very quick way of ascertaining if actually an investment is worth it or not, simply by numbers. And then you can have a look at it. You know, obviously we haven't included the taxes for this or the strata management fees, etc. So you need to incorporate that all into the expenses. Whether those be yearly, you need to sort of divide that by 12, etc. as well. So basically this two-step process is what I use every day, and it can be used to basically track if something is actually going to be better for you or actually be worse off for you financially. This can be applied to acquiring a business. It's just the numbers are a little bit larger. Obviously, acquiring an investment property, what we've actually just seen, very simple demonstration on that. And also, simple things such as moving house. If you wanted to increase that mortgage, remortgage, or maybe move to a larger place or a smaller place, how that's going to affect your financials. So I hope that actually brings a lot of clarity to your financial picture. And that's basically it for this video. If you found it useful, kindly give me a like and a subscribe. That would really help the channel. If you don't have a financial statement, we've got links in the description below so you can download our free template. But I think the question of the day is actually, what sort of expense tracking software are you using? Do you use something similar such as You Need a Budget, or is there maybe a simpler method that I've overlooked? Please let me know. And that's it for this video. Hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.